Right, that should be it. We should be live. Right, everybody, welcome to another TRB success interview with one of my good clients here, James Quinn, who, considering his chaotic lifestyle and traveling from country to country, he's had a remarkable transformation. So hopefully he's going to give some good insight to anybody who's in a similar position. Feels like you're just too time constrained to put yourself first, and let's put it politely, sort your shit out. So yeah, this should be a good one. Jimmy, if you just want to give a little bit of insight about you, the business, etc., and we'll go from there.
Cool. Nice to see you again, Chris. Yeah, well, what can I say? I'm Jimmy Quinn, 55 years old, and just 2 days ago celebrated 27 years of ownership of a consultancy business, really specializing in productivity and efficiency, i.e., as my mother, ex-trade union leader, said many years ago, introducing me to some of her friends, here's my son, the hatchet man. So, 27 years in a business, running the business, same business, although I've always had offshoots of crazy vanity projects. I've owned quite a few pubs. Chris, we've had a good laugh about it as we went, me talking about going to work with a cock and a frock when I opened my first drag bar. And all of those other stuff. So there's been a variety of stuff, but I've stuck with the health and social care consultancy pretty much over the last 27 years. And I guess that my whole journey into uncomfortableness, fatness, unhealthiness, started kind of fairly young, but really looking at it, it was about 18 years ago I stopped smoking, and within a year kind of piled on about 4 stone. And I was kind of living on fags and black coffee, traveling the world, 16 flights a week, traveling Europe really, 16 flights a week, not sleeping much, hanging together on, nicotine, caffeine, and any other, shall we say, substances that kind of kept you awake, Pro Plus being popped and all of that stuff, working on nervous energy and the buzz of sale and all of that kind of stuff, and age and metabolism and changes and lifestyle and all of that kind of stuff creeps up. I love to drink. I was a drinker, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 pints on a Friday night after work.
Wow.
With the gang, started to have those kind of can't remember what happened on Friday night, can't remember what happened on Saturday, Sunday, hanging the head in shame, coming back, all that kind of stuff. And so, been there, kind of played hard, worked hard all the way along. And I guess when COVID came, a situation kind of hit me where both my parents were diagnosed just before COVID with dementia, with mixed dementia. I'm an only child, and I promised, maybe rashly, years ago that I'd look after them at home. And so this isn't a sob story. It just, when COVID came, it became really difficult. We lost any of the care that we had. I started having to spend so much time with them, involved in the care, and trying to juggle a business that was really dead on its feet, because our business was frontline healthcare at that point. So COVID hit, we were all sent home packing, so there was suddenly no business. Parents had no carers. I suddenly became their carer, and have had to learn to do things I never imagined I would do, intimate care for my father particularly. So there was a whole change in where I was, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I sort of saw this, and I managed the stress, having to kind of smile tits and teeth all the time with them. I suddenly saw kind of solace, I guess, in just bad eating and bad habits and not looking after myself.
Yeah.
And I'd give all the time. It was 24/7. It was all going out. Eating, thinking I was eating healthy, but eating like half a kilo of grapes in bed at night. A whole pineapple in bed at night, and still the trash. Crisps and what have you. I'd stopped drinking a long time ago. Before that, it's now 10 years, not because I was an alcoholic, but because I made myself ill through it and developed an allergy. So it suddenly got to the point where I was the heaviest I'd ever been. And over the 18 years since I'd stopped smoking, I'd done absolutely everything. And we'll talk about that hopefully in a second. But I've done everything in terms of weight, in terms of fitness that you could possibly imagine, some weird and wonderful concoctions as well. But the time came when I suddenly realized this is the biggest, fattest, heaviest, most uncomfortable, most really kind of hating myself physically, not being able to look at myself, I ever was.
Mm.
And began to actively search for something, and came across some of the stuff that you'd posted and thought, this approach kind of combines lots of the stuff I've done before, so lots of it isn't necessarily new, but looking at some of the testimonials of the other people, is there something in it? And so that journey began, 4 months ago.
Yeah. So just to summarize that, for the first time, arguably struggling business because of the pandemic, and then combine that with taking care of your parents on a way deeper level than you ever imagined. So a lot of stressful. Put yourself on the back burner. You're finding comfort in food, and then that's how you ballooned up.
Yeah, absolutely. And ditching the gym and ditching anything I was doing before to kind of focus.
You just literally put yourself on the back burner. I've got to try and save the business, and I've got to obviously take care of the parents.
That's what it felt like. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that went on for a few years.
Yeah, a couple of years.
COVID's like 2 or 3 years ago now. I don't know.
Yeah,
Time's flashing by. Yeah.
Time's flying.
Yeah, it was a very strange point. And how was it affecting you, like mentally? I know you joined the TRB like in a good place, but like that was a very challenging period of your life, surely.
Yeah, I mean, I joined the TRB because I'd gotten myself out of the funk I was in. I mean, I was pretty, looking back. I mean, I guess when you're coping with things and you haven't done anything drastic, you don't realize quite how bad it was until you start looking at it. Looking back, whoa, shit, how the hell did I manage to get through some of that stuff? But I'd gotten myself into the situation where I wanted to do something, and that's the first step for everybody, I guess.
Yeah.
You got to get yourself in that place where you really needing to do something isn't the same as wanting to do it. I needed to do it. I needed to do it for a long time. I needed to do something 18 years ago, and I stopped smoking and started, comfort eating and doing all of the other stuff with your hands that you do. And it's just it was just a point in time. We all need something to measure. We all need a point in time to think, oh, that was the thing. Might not have been. But there was a whole load of stuff, and I think, I was in a much better place, not a good place. I was in a much better place, and I was ready to kind of do something. And I had dealt with a couple of business issues. I'd put somebody in the business to run the business, and who'd ran it into the ground. And I had that choice to make: do I lock the door on my business and my baby? It was 26 and a bit years at that time, and just walk away and say, well, admit defeat. And I guess that little thing inside me, which is always there, I hate not winning. So,
yeah, every man can relate. Well, women as well, but yeah, that's defeat.
so,
Failure.
so that competitive, even competing against myself, nature came to the fore, and I guess that's how we met.
Cool. So let's talk about what you've tried in the past, because you've tried God knows what. And a lot of men, that's one of the things that like they've just lost the belief basically in the fitness industry. They've tried fucking everything. So give a bit of insight to what you've tried.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I've listed it a million times recently.
But
all of the kind of diety stuff, all of the faddy stuff, and I will call it faddy stuff because it's impossible for a human being to exist that way. So I've done the vegetarian stuff, I've done the keto diet, I've done, the next version, which was the paleo. I've done cabbage soup diets to your kind of retching and barfing, and your house smells like I have no idea. Both your house and your arse. I mean, I have no idea. I've pissed like cart horses. I've done the coffee enemas. And I guess they're probably the most extreme. But I loved it at the time, and it's given me, it's given me a different side to life. Was when I was 40, that whole process, so after 18 years, 3 years into it, when I realized I put on all this weight, and the first time I needed to start to do something about it, I was introduced to Muay Thai kickboxing, which, considering I come from a family of boxers and I hated it as a kid, it was like, I punched somebody and never wanted to go back. I took this up, which was a strange thing. Rather than buying a convertible or a soft top, like most men having a midlife crisis, I took up kickboxing, which was a bit weird. And I, every January for about 8 years, would go to Thailand with a group of people on a complete detox. And all of the Thais that were working with us thought we were absolute bonkers. But and he's still a friend to this day, my coach and trainer at the time, had it in his head that a complete detox meant, stripping everything, including food, for 2 weeks. So we did a complete nil by mouth for 2 whole weeks, and kickboxing for about 4 hours a day.
What?
in the December or January heat of Thailand. And it absolutely shed the pounds, I'll tell you. The first time I came back here, people looked at me in the street and people stopped me and said, "Are you okay?" I mean, I did look like I was,
I can imagine. You've been stranded in Thailand for 2 weeks.
I had a cream sort of sports coat that was trendy at the time, and I looked like Dopey from the Seven Dwarfs. So the shoulders were down here and the arms were dangling. It was like, emaciated. But I mean, that's water, that's all of that stuff, So I mean, losing 15, 20 kilos over a couple of weeks prep, the 2 weeks and a couple of weeks afterwards. But can you imagine going to the land where they have the most amazing food and not eating any of it, drinking water and popping supplements and trying to keep the hunger pangs at bay by mixes of psyllium husk and clay, and having a hose pipe shoved up your arse with coffee in it. And anyway, listen, I've done everything, but I guess that was kind of fairly extreme and hardcore until I then got talked into by a dietitian and a surgeon actually to try these swallowable, non-surgical, non-invasive balloons. So rather than getting a stomach staple or any of that stuff, I did at the size of a tampon, I believe, swallow this thing on a string. They fill this balloon up and it's in your body for 3 to 4 months until it kind of disintegrates. And again, works wonders. I mean, you can't eat, you're gagging constantly, you feel seasick constantly. Great advert for them. But the weight drops off. But every time I did all of these kind of things, what happened was not only did I go back, there was an extra few pounds. So 8 trips to Thailand, 2 balloons, keto, coffee enemas, you name it. Every time finished that stuff, it slipped back. And
wow. You've got the trophy for fucking tried the most things.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I hate to think the tens of thousands of pounds that were involved in it as well.
Yeah.
But hey, I got myself, back to the last point we made. I got myself to that point in January this year. Myself and one of the women that used to go on this went to Thailand herself. I'd got myself into this position of somewhat positive thinking, and we went and we did the Muay Thai, 3 hours a day, but we ate sensibly and we had a good time. And actually, it was at that point I realized that I can do all of these things, but I can't do this denial bit. And all of the stuff that I've done, and the thing that was in common was this extreme and denial and misery. I grew up a Catholic. I say to everybody I'm an RC, a recovering Catholic these days, but it was that whole kind of flagellation, kind of penance, beating yourself and the misery that went with all of those things. And I had that mindset that, getting fitter or losing weight or being in shape was all about misery. You had to give up things, you had to stop things, you had to deny things. And so, it was an interesting journey in my own mindset to say, hey, shit, I can do this. So the Thai stuff is actually going to continue. I'm kind of looking at stuff for this coming year. And I think I could do that and have a good time and look after myself and actually feel good at the same time. So I've done absolutely, I don't think, come up with something and let's have a quiz and see if I've done it.
Wow, I didn't even know half of them things, to be fair. So that leads us on nicely to what was the difference between that and then obviously what we've done in the TRB. Why is this time different for you, do you think?
For me, it was the layering of habit. It was the creating of new habits. Habits we think are difficult, but they're easy when you think about it, because we go through this life developing bad habits and trying to get out of them and stressing about we've got all these bad habits, whether the bad habit is smoking or drinking a liter of wine a day, or going down the pub and forgetting to come home and whatever. These are all bad habits, but habits are good as well if we can form them. So we have this situation in the brain that, for me, if you start to kind of develop habits one at a time, you take them on. And I'm a kind of an addictive type of person. I get addicted to stuff. Hence the kickboxing, hence the paleo and all of that kind of stuff. And I think at this time it was about the doing one thing at a time, stepping it up, but also the realization that you can have a day that isn't quite so good, and you don't necessarily feel great, but it isn't the end of it. All of these other things just seem so definitive they seemed that if you didn't follow the rules, or you broke the rules, or oh God, you ate a slice of bread. Oh my God, my world is over. I've had
Yeah.
some. Oh my God, I've come out of ketosis. Ah, end of the world.
Fucking hell. I
Yeah, I
fucked
want to
up.
start again. I think that was the difference. And also, yeah, it wasn't about that denial. It was about working on your mindset at the same time as working on the stuff which wasn't extreme physical stuff. I had a PT. I mean, and God love him, he tried his best, but the days when I couldn't be bothered, I just couldn't be bothered. But in this one, the whole 12 weeks, there was no time that it wasn't couldn't be bothered, because we were building on those things, and things became a way of life, and they became a way of life that were sensible things. Nothing was extreme, and it's that good habit forming, I think. But knowing that you're not falling off a cliff. It's not the end. You've not gone back to reset. You've not gone back to zero.
Yeah.
I mean, I was lucky in one sense as well, that I didn't have any weeks when the weight didn't go down. There was some weeks when it went down rapidly, and other weeks when it didn't. And it's all about the being realistic in the reality of it. And I think the 12 weeks pace was also something that I was able to keep up with and not do the extreme stuff.
So I think it's important to mention, like, it wasn't just like a clean stretch of 12 weeks where you had nothing going on in your life. Like, it's been a hectic fucking time for you, hasn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
So,
still putting the business back together, deciding, well, allowing myself that. And the other thing it's done is it's freed up mind space, and it's freed up thinking time, and allowed me not to necessarily jump in and make decisions, but allowed me a little bit more thinking time than I've ever allowed myself, probably in the last 26 and a bit years. It's freed up a lot of mind fog, mind time, dumped a lot of the crap that's floating around in there that don't really need to worry about or take up space. But I was still working. I'm still doing 34 hours a week. I'm here in the house that I've got next to my parents. I was on duty last night. I was up a couple of times during the night. But the difference now is, when I get that alarm call that, there's something happened, I don't panic or, kind of go into whatever. I'm cool. I can do it. I know that, sure, I'm not going to be exhausted the whole of the next day, because I can take 10 minutes of a little snooze, or I'm feeling well enough. I'm feeling a lot better that I'm not sluggish all the time. So yeah, there's everything is still continuing. My parents continue on their journey to the end with dementia. There's only one way out of that, sadly. I'm okay with that now. I've learned to accept that and deal with it. The business is actually flying. I've closed quite a few deals that I kind of got back into the front line. I was really kind of keeping myself behind the scenes as much as possible, partly because I really hated how I looked and how I felt, and I just really wasn't at the top of my game and kind of feeling, but putting the business back together at the same time as this, and not about finding time, because it's not about time, but deciding that putting me back at the center of things, which actually sounds selfish, but it's not, because me back at the center of things has allowed me to stop being such a grumpy bastard with everybody. I mean, my moods have completely changed. I'm much happier in myself. And actually, there's a little saying I had that, gone to the cupboard and taken away and thrown away all the fucks, and there's no more fucks left to give.
I can't imagine you. Sorry, I can't imagine you being grumpy, because you've just been so fucking happy throughout the process.
Yeah, but the tendency to kind of just explode because you kind of wound up like a spring was there, and it's like there is nothing that important in life more than your own health. I mean, that's it.
One of the standout things for me from this experience is that moment you said your dad called you by the name for the first time, and because you've lost the weight, then you were able to get down and be with him or something. Like, can you?
Yeah, I mean, when you have, gosh, I mean, this is a part of biblical broadcast. I mean, I think that in our lifetimes now, your client base and yourself, I mean, you're younger than us, but we are going to somehow experience dementia. The statistics show that kind of, one in three of us is going to kind of be touched significantly by dementia. And I don't think that until you're in that situation, me with both parents, and both in-laws, I have to say, who both passed away during COVID. That's yet another layer of it. We'll not dwell on that one. But it's a physical thing. The things that you go through, you begin to lose all of your faculties. And God love him, my father was such a man's man, such a sporty man. He played badminton until he was 70. He was a black belt in judo, and all of that kind of stuff. I was never anywhere near. I think it was a big disappointment, in that sense. But to go from that to being a helpless, shuffling old man who basically just doesn't know how to go to the toilet anymore, and basically lives in incontinence pads that need to be changed. All of his needs need to be met. It's physically demanding, and again, that was one of the things that there's that switch in me when I was just exhausted, bending down, kind of trying to put my dad's shoes on. I mean, I was just, this is not real. The sweats trying to kind of help him have a shower and all of that kind of stuff. So, able to give him all of that back. And I think being able, and again, I was angry with myself, but angry with life and angry with everything, being hot and sweaty, trying to put your father's shoes on to kind of just give him a little bit of dignity or help him put his trousers on or whatever. Because I was really struggling to do that for him, all of these emotions and all of that kind of annoyance and whatever was there. And, over the last 3-4 months, that's completely changed. And it's helped him, because I'm not kind of wound up. I'm not obviously giving off these vibes. And the brain's an interesting thing. I think, when there's a mental abnormality, shall we say, or something that other bits of the brain heightens. And I think he was picking up on my stress and my angriness and what have you. Yeah, and that day he called me, he actually shouted out loud and called me by my name. He hadn't really spoken for months. He was completely non-verbal. It was like, whoa. I'll tell you the truth. I mean, I kind of shed a tear at that point, and I'm still emotional thinking about it now. I'm really proud that I was able to give that back to him, but proud of doing it for myself, because there's nothing worse than a fat, sweaty man trying to be.
That just highlights the whole thing where you say put your own oxygen mask on first, because helping yourself,
absolutely.
you've been able to help your family, haven't you? So.
Absolutely. And I know that the business that we're talking about is all about being a business leader, but at the same time, I mean, that's the same metaphor for business. I was kind of I was slow, lumbering, and sweaty in business, and not good, and sluggishness. And it was the biggest thing for me was that kind of sluggish brain, because that annoyed me, as well as the body side. But that's a second issue.
And then summarize the results. What are the results you've achieved? Put the numbers on. So, how much weight did you lose?
Yeah, I mean, 42 kilos in the 42 kilos. I wish 42 pounds.
You're not back in Thailand now.
But that's going to be by the end of the year. In the 12 weeks, and for me that was necessary. And my plan going ahead is to repeat that, maybe not in the same time frame. And I've continued. I've lost a couple of pounds since then, despite ending up at a works thing and catching some horrible lurgy and being sick and what have you. But I think I'm certainly in that place. And again, it's proven in the 2 weeks since we ended the first 12 weeks that it is ritual, it's habit, it's a way of life, and it's just become what I do. I mean, yesterday again was one of the first days I was feeling really well, and ended up walking deliberately, taking away my gym time and walking and getting my mojo back with the walking, and doing about 20,000 steps yesterday deliberately. I mean,
wow, that is some going.
I suffered a little bit at the gym this morning with lower back aches and what have you, because I'm still carrying quite a bit of timber. But it was a focus thing and out there doing it. And I took the time. I had a whole load of stuff to do. I had a whole load of calls, but all the preparations done whilst I'm doing that. And for me, the walking was the was the amazing discovery that I didn't actually have to go and beast myself at a boot camp 3 times a week and have some whippersnapper shouting the odds at me and me growling and going, what a wanker. Back in an alley, I'm gonna have them. But that kind of stuff. The walking for me was the real revelation that you could do something which was enjoyable and opened up. It's opened up a whole load of stuff for me that I never imagined. Something just as mundane as spending some focused time walking and getting out in the air.
Yeah, I said it at the start, Jimmy. You're going to walk your way to losing this 42 pounds, and it's exactly what you did.
And I was on this meeting on a boat, a cruise ship. It wasn't nothing as fancy as a cruise ship, a ferry for a few days, and I was so stressed. In one sense, the first time I've actually felt myself about to get stressed in this whole thing. And I realized it was because there was no gym on this boat, and we were all locked up, and everybody was drinking and just being stupid, and it was just one of these things, work things I had to do with clients, but every second I had, I was up on that deck marching around like a lunatic, and I walked around. I mean, I think I must have walked between Stockholm and Mariehamn, which is a Finnish island. I mean, we did it 8 times over the 3 days. I mean, I think I walked quite a lot of it. I mean, I have a mate who used to work on the trains from Edinburgh to London. He used to say, 4 times a week I walk Edinburgh to London. Ha ha ha, used to laugh. But there was me doing the same thing, kind of just walking, and my savior, my literally my savior.
If Jimmy can do, I think it was 16,000 steps on a fucking boat, like anybody can get some steps in, surely. Christ.
Yeah, I mean, the guys that are joining you will remember. You're probably too young. A program called Triangle. It was the most awful soap opera, and it was on a Sunday, I think, and it was on a ferry in the North Sea, and it was awful. And the kind of one of the opening credits was Kate O'Mara kind of taking her top off and sort of nude sunbathing face down, of course, on a Sunday afternoon. But it was grey and miserable and what have you. It was in the North Sea, and this was where we were in the Baltic Sea doing the same thing. And I'm marching around the deck, kind of with nothing else to do, with a man on a mission. And I even dragged my HR director. And every time she stopped to speak, I said, let's keep walking and talking to me. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you become obsessed by it, but I guess you could. I guess you could be obsessed by it. But it is, if this program, needs something to sell it or whatever, it shouldn't. It's that whole thing about actually you said it, you can walk your way to a real huge change in your lifestyle, which I beforehand, I think I went, yeah, right, walking. What's the Chris? There's got to be, where is this big secret reveal? Where is this liquid that you're going to send through the post and I've got to drink or shove up my arse or whatever?
The reason why it's not marketed heavily is because people in the fitness industry, we kind of sell it. It's something you do on your own. Do you know what I mean? So that's the truth behind it all. Which leads us on nicely. So just to conclude, what would you say to somebody who is watching this, similar position to you as you were 12 weeks ago? They're sitting on the fence, typical bloke, wants to ask for help but doesn't. What would your advice be from your experience?
Just get your ass off that fence. You get the splinters in your hole. Just do it. And the bizarre thing is, do it. I mean, do it. It sounds like, oh, there's a big commitment or whatever. But when you think about what it is, it's the thing about layering it. It's the thing about having somebody every week, having that contact point and doing stuff, changing your mindset and changing your behaviors. There's nothing absolutely huge that's asked to do. There's nothing that's impossible. There's nothing that you go, oh God, that's a real stretch. Which is the really interesting thing. But the biggest thing is there's nothing that's a sacrifice. And for me, that thing is, if you've gone through the miserable stuff, this is not misery in the slightest. In fact, I'm really happy and was actually really happy all the way through. And we laughed. I mean, I think for the 12 weeks we did quite a lot of laughing. And
I've never laughed that much in 12 weeks, I must say.
Some of the stories and what have you. But it's not. Do it. Try it. I mean, and I would go as far as to say it probably is for everybody, because there's nothing that's as I say, you're not eating spinach, 25 kilos of spinach a week. You're not doing any of those things which you just have to do, but hold your nose and swallow it. None of that, because it isn't, because that's not what it's about. It's about the person. It's about that whole thing about behavior. It's about our behavior and what's in there, finding its place again, and finding that thing which is natural, which is being healthy for our families, healthy for our partners, healthy for our businesses, but also healthy for ourselves. And that's for me, I really do. The biggest takeaway is I'd lost myself in all of these things that became, overwhelming. And business leaders don't like to admit being overwhelmed. They don't like to admit defeat. They don't like to admit that they're struggling. And struggles come in lots of different ways. But I think anybody who's looking at this, I think you are struggling. You've got to be, because otherwise you wouldn't be looking at these videos and you're looking to think, what's that next thing, or what's the thing? For me, touch wood, 2 weeks afterwards, this is the thing. It's not the next thing. I know that my well-being in general, as well as my kind of fitness and my weight, and the weight for me is a number. It's about how I'm feeling. I'm feeling a lot better. I'm looking a lot better. Anybody who looks at the before and after pictures, Chris has got some pictures that I'm happy for him to share with people in the program, or people that are thinking about the program. There's just a couple of pictures of me in my pants. I'm not that kind of nicest.
Yeah, I chose the head one instead because I didn't want to do that to you.
Yeah, I mean, video nasties, we don't talk about them often, but yeah, I've got to not be ashamed of it, because I was hiding, and I'm proud, actually. And it's one thing it's another thing I think I learned is actually be a little bit more proud of yourself and give yourself a little bit more credit. I think as business people, let everybody else take, unless you're a complete and utter megalomaniac, in which case, forget it. I mean, nobody really wants to work with you and listen to that shit for 12 weeks. But we don't give ourselves as business leaders and as family people, I guess, as much credit as we probably should. And success is what we are all in business for. I think for some reason we forget that at certain points, but that success has also got to include ourselves.
Wow. I've thoroughly enjoyed that one. And that was actually my last question. Are you proud of yourself? So there you go.
Yeah, I am. I think probably 12, 14 weeks ago, and you did ask me, I mean, part of the program, giving a couple of secrets away, is actually about how you're thinking and how you think of yourself and how you feel. I think certainly for the first few weeks I didn't, but I got into that one really pretty quickly. And I'm proud of myself. And listen, it's an ego boost when people say, "Oh God," people that haven't seen you for a while, "Oh wow, you're looking really, really healthy." Whereas before, the sarcasm was, "You're looking fairly affluent," which meant you're a fat bastard and you're eating and drinking too much.
Oh God, what you like. On that note, we'll conclude and finish the testimonial. Thank you for your time, Jimmy. And on to the next chapter for us, hopefully. Right. Catch you later, everybody. If you need any help, shoot me a message.